Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's David and Melody here again with you with Eden Wellness, and we are here just talking about week 3 and talking about sleep and de-stressing. And today we are actually just going to talk about, yesterday, if you guys are following along, we talked about some supplements and some things you can do to help get you better sleep. And today we are going to start talking about the differences, kind of key in a little bit on the differences between men and women on sleep. And then some tips that go along with that if you're a woman or if you're a guy, and how you can help yourself get better sleep. But if you're married or have a significant other, that you can help them also get better sleep and be less stressed. So we just wanted to start off with guys, I think, so I'll take that one. It's a lot simpler being a guy. If you are one, you should be thankful every day, because the hormones and things are a lot different, a lot more simpler, especially when it comes to sleep. Guys, when we hit puberty, our testosterone goes up, and it stays up forever and ever and ever until we die, and that's just how it works. So that's kind of what happens for men. And then for women, you obviously cycle all the time, and you do all these kinds of things. So for guys, it's a lot simpler. And when it comes down to sleep, our testosterone is really the hormone that makes us a guy. So testosterone is what's going to give us that energy, that drive. It's what will give us strength and power and all that kind of stuff. And 95% of your testosterone comes from your testes. And so what that means is, even if your adrenals are completely tanked, I think only 3% of that hormone comes from your adrenal glands. So that's why sleep is a little bit less important. Not even less important, but you just need less of it than you would for if you were a woman. So for guys, if you were watching the video last night or yesterday or even today for that matter, you saw that guys really need 6 to 8 hours of sleep ideally. And so really the tips that I have for you as a guy, guys are simple, but really, really important that we watch what we're eating. So guys, typically if we're going to have issues, especially if we're going to have issues with sleep or issues overall with testosterone and all that kind of stuff, it's because of blood sugar. It's because we love to eat our carbs, and we love to eat our sugar, and we love to eat our candy, and we love to eat our bad fried stuff and all that kind of stuff. So when I'm talking about sugar, I'm not just talking about candy, but I'm talking about everything from fruit to potatoes to rice to bananas to any carbohydrate that turns to sugar in your body is going to raise that blood sugar. And that's not necessarily bad. That's how the body was made and how it's supposed to respond. However, when you continually do it day in after day out, your body can become insulin resistant, and we can have some of those issues with blood sugar. So if you're a guy and you wake up in the morning and you're super groggy, that is a telltale sign that you have blood sugar issues. Okay? If you're a guy and you consistently wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. and you always look at your alarm clock and you're like, man, it's always 3 o'clock or whatever, somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m. And that's consistent. If it happens once in a while, that's one thing. But if it's happening day in after day out, that's another sign that you have blood sugar issues. So what can we do to fix that? I mean, number one, stop eating sugar. That's kind of the easiest, simple way to do it. But I understand that that's not always easy for everybody, and we're all kind of addicted to it. So what are some other ways we can have the same response is if we stop eating at like 7 o'clock p.m. or 8 o'clock at the latest, and at least have 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, guys. That's huge. That'll help you sleep better. It's going to help that blood sugar drop before you go to bed. It's going to help that cortisol drop before you go to bed. So then you'll be able to fall asleep and stay asleep longer. So probably the biggest thing, the biggest tip that I have for you is stop eating at 7 o'clock. You're going to sleep better if you're a guy. And then start to do some intermittent fasting. So stop eating at 7 and then maybe don't eat the next day until lunch. And that in and of itself, it's going to help you lose weight. It's going to boost your testosterone. It's going to boost your strength. You're not going to lose muscle because of it. I know people get freaked out because of that. It actually has the opposite effect on your hormones. That testosterone is going to be upregulated, that growth hormone is going to be upregulated, and obviously you're going to get better sleep. So those hormones are going to be better for all that stuff. So stop the sugar, get to bed early, between 9 and 10, ideally, if you can't, for sure between 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And then stop that sugar and stop food in general at like 7 o'clock if you're going to bed at 9, or 8 o'clock if you're going to bed at 10. And then try some intermittent fasting. Just skip one meal. It's good even spiritually if you're into that thing. You can fast, you can pray, but it's good for a lot of things for guys. So that's my tip for guys' sleep. Get to bed early, stop the sugar, stop the food before bed, and try some intermittent fasting. So
yeah,
not so simple on the women's side, but
great tips though for men. And for women, it's a little different, similar but a little different, so we'll go over that here. For women, like he was talking about before, for men, 6 to 8 hours is a good range for amount of sleep to get each day. For women, 8 to 10 hours is more ideal. And the reason being behind that is because women have, just physically and biologically, we have more hormones that we're making, and our adrenals are actually making a lot more of those than they do for men. And so we actually physically need more of that sleep to have great functioning each and every single day. And so aiming to go to bed at that time between like 9 and 10 p.m. is really the best.
Yeah.
Closer to 9:30 is better, but that range between 9 and 10, if you're getting to bed between there, like, and actually falling asleep and getting to bed, that's going to be really, really great. And then you can wake up the next morning. For women, cortisol should be peaking between 6 and 8 a.m. For men, it's going to be closer to 6, even 5 a.m. And that is normal. Men should be able to get up much earlier than women should. And I'm going to show you a little cortisol pattern here. So maybe you've seen this before, maybe you haven't. There we go. So here, we're starting on this side, okay? So we got 3 a.m., we got 6 a.m., we got 9, all the way down, okay? See that how it's like kind of spiked? It's kind of spiked on this side. There we go. It's kind of hard to figure out where to point. So you have like that spike. That is your cortisol spike in the morning. That's what gets you up out of bed. Now, there's some people, like, they barely even have a spike and it's way down here. So you're having a hard time getting out of bed. You feel like you could just keep on sleeping, then okay. That's something where you need to get some further testing done, and that's something that we actually do. There's a lot of people who do it, but that's something to see where your hormones are actually at, how your adrenals are functioning. But that is not good, because you do want a good spike in the morning. That's what gets you up. And then throughout the day, as you can see on this chart, it goes down till here where you're going to bed, because you want it to be very minimal. And stress, because we're talking about sleep and stress spikes your cortisol. And so it's super important to try to shut your brain off at night. Like, I know it's hard. We struggle with it too, like being on your phone, being on your computer, watching TV, like all that screen stimulation keeps you awake, or if there's other stressful things going on, trying some of the supplements that we mentioned yesterday, doing some other things, reading a book before you go to bed can be really helpful. And just obviously getting to bed earlier, making healthy choices in your food, staying away from a bunch of sugar. But this is what a normal cortisol pattern will look like. It's going to look a little different for everybody. For men, again, like I said, it's going to be a little earlier in the morning, around 6 o'clock. And then it's just going to dip down. And a lot of times people have what they call that lunch coma. After they eat their food, they have like a drop. For women, we actually have a steeper drop in that cortisol after lunch. Men don't have quite as steep of a drop there. You can if you're having a lot of sugar in your diet. You will know. You'll feel like extreme, super tired, fatigue after lunch, like you could just totally nap. And for women, it's That's normal to feel a little tired after you eat lunch, because you do have like just that normal dip in cortisol, and then it just starts to keep going down throughout the day till it's nighttime and you go to bed, because you don't want your cortisol being up or you won't be able to sleep. Now someone who like has this pattern and their cortisol is like up like here, that's not good, because it's going to be real hard for them to fall asleep and to stay asleep, to get to sleep, all that stuff. So that's kind of our cycle on a daily basis. Spike up, slowly goes down, does it all over again the next day. And the important thing for women that I just kind of want to say, the reason being 9 to 10 getting to bed, because it's not going to be the same. If you go to bed at like midnight, you're a night owl. Some people say they are a night owl. I used to be kind of like that in college. Some people are that way, but it's actually not good for you. That's not how your body is supposed to function. And it's like with our melatonin and everything, like there could be issues there if your body is not naturally producing enough, all those kinds of things. But getting to bed between 9 and 10 is important, because if you're going to bed at midnight, like I was saying, and then you're sleeping into maybe 12 the next day, you don't feel as rested. You just don't feel as good. I can significantly tell when I went to bed at 9 p.m. or 9:30 versus like 11:30. I do not have quite as much energy the next day. I just don't. And that's normal. Like, because it's not going to be, it doesn't equal the same. Even if it's the same amount of hours, the time, the certain times is really important. And it's important because of this. For women, like when compared to men, it's 3% that their adrenals are producing for their hormone. But for women, it's 30%. 30. So way more. And so the times between 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., or sometimes 2 a.m., but 9 and 1, in between there, that's when your hormones are rejuvenating. They're getting fueled for the next day.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that and you're going to bed at midnight, your body's only having an hour to refuel those hormones for the next day for energy. So you can not just get through the day, but you can thrive through the day. And so that's the importance with the timeline that you're going to bed, if that makes sense.
And to that point, I don't know if you guys have heard people say this, but it's really true that an hour of sleep before midnight is actually worth 2 hours of sleep after midnight. So getting to bed at 9 o'clock is going to give you 3 hours of sleep.
It's also important.
But it's actually an hour that's more important than the sleep after midnight. So, and that's why, that's the scientific basis as to why that is. It's not just someone made it up sometime. It's actually
really
a good
important
tip and a real thing to do. So.
And especially for women, it's super important. So if you're like, oh, that totally makes sense, I don't feel rested enough, even though like I have kids, so I go to bed late, and then I, sleep in after they go to school or whatever, you just don't feel as good because your body didn't have that accurate time to get refueled for the next day for that energy, if that makes sense. And melatonin plays a big part into this, right? Like I said before, if we're looking at our screens and everything up right and before we go to bed, our brains are still on. They're going like crazy. You can't just shut it off after that, because your brain doesn't actually shut off for a while. And melatonin is very much so triggered by light. So like, for example, if you wake up in the morning and you stare into the sun, turn the lights on and stuff, your body stops making that melatonin because it's time for you to wake up, to get up for the day, to get going, right? Because that's the cycle. It's our circadian rhythm, like we talked about, and that changes throughout the whole day. And melatonin is really important. Some people can be low in that. Some people can be really high in it. It just kind of depends. And I know there's a lot of people out there that take melatonin. You have to be really careful with that, because you can take too much of that, and that can really start to affect your body. And for some people, if they take it and it does nothing for them, then that means you don't need it. Like, your body doesn't need it. Now, some people will take it and they sleep amazing. Okay, their body is obviously lacking in it, but there's something deeper going on with their hormones, with their adrenals. And light inhibits melatonin production, like I said. So that's why shutting off lights, getting some dim lit things, waking up with a light alarm clock is actually better. I guess it wouldn't really be a alarm clock; it'd be a light clock. So you're kind of, there's some that kind of like look like a sun, kind of like is like you're coming up to a sunrise, which is really cool because if you think about it, you have like that alarm, you have like an instant purge of like cortisol spike because you're getting like jolted awake, and that's like stressful to your body. Whereas if you're gently waking up to light, that's not so stressful for your body, and you'll still have the cortisol come up, but it'll be much more balanced. You just won't have that quick spike. I mean, who likes to wake up to an annoying jolting alarm, right? There's also sound clocks that you can get. They can be, you know, like nature sounds, whatever. There's a lot of kind of cool stuff that you can get. And then like for those of you that like have kids and stuff, I know that's different. You might be kind of disregarding some of this information because you're like, I literally can't get to bed at 9 o'clock or whatever. I'm trying to get them to put to bed and I have a bunch of stuff to do after they go to bed. I understand. Yes, there's seasons in life like that, but if your significant other can be on board with you and helping you with that and understanding this, you guys can help each other out. And there's a lot of different ways that you can help each other out with that. Maybe one person puts the kids to bed one night so you can get to bed a little earlier, or vice versa, or change that in the mornings, who's getting them up, whatever. You have to find what works best for you. And if it's a time where you have a really young child who's waking up all the time, or you have a baby maybe, obviously you're going to be up at all kinds of different hours, and you won't have like necessarily, it can happen, but you won't always have like that full 8 to 10 hours sleep, but one thing you can do is be supporting your adrenals very much so during those seasons, and taking adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha is a really great one. You can support yourself with California poppy like we talked about for sleep to get to bed. So those are going to be important things to look at, making sure you're getting the right nutrients and minerals in your body. But that's kind of the gist with the sleep, your circadian rhythm, why it's so important to get to bed between those times. And again, for men, 6 to 8 hours is really good. For women, 8 to 10 is actually really great. For kids, obviously, they need a little more. So hopefully this kind of makes sense. We're going to be sharing some other tips this week. Tomorrow we're going to be sharing proper ways to sleep. So we're going to be showing you what to do with your pillows and like ways to sleep, whether it's on your side, your back, and the best way actually to sleep. So we're going to share some of those tips with you, and then you can try them out this week. But yeah, if you have questions or want to comment anything, feel free to do that. You can send us a message, contact us. We're happy to help. And if we don't know the answer to something, we'll totally research it and get back to you on it. But yeah, that's kind of some of the takeaways for sleep. Other things that can help, just a couple real quick things that can also help are inversion tables, right? Those are really great. And why are they really helpful for sleep?
Well, it really just comes down to where your adrenal glands are in your body. So they sit right on top of your kidneys here. So a lot of times
they look like mini kidneys, actually.
They don't get a break unless you actually turn your body upside down. And that's why a lot of times it's even, some people say it's good to sleep without a pillow, so you're not always sitting up a little bit. But when you turn your body upside down, your adrenals will actually get a little bit of a break, just physically.
They can like take a breath. And your heart does too. Your heart and your adrenals.
And that's actually why, the real popular yoga pose, the downward dog. It's the same idea.
You can you can do a little bit of yoga before bed if you want. Just go in that downward dog position and you'll give your adrenals a little bit of a break. That's why that's became so popular now. It's very relaxing to the body. Or at least before bed, for maybe 10-15 minutes, you can elevate your feet a little bit before you go to bed, getting it just a little bit above your adrenals if you want. And then tomorrow we'll go over some tips of ways that you can sleep that are really helpful. And then another thing, complete darkness in your bedroom. like we were talking about with the melatonin in the light, inhibits the production of it. And obviously you don't want that when you're sleeping. So some people I know like a little bit of night light. That's not necessarily bad. I like it to be dark. If it's not dark, I wake up. Like if I'm sleeping and he goes to the bathroom or something, the light comes on, I like can see it immediately. So for me, it's really important for darkness. You know, you can get like a sleep mask. You can get like black or like really dark gray curtains. We actually have specific curtains that block out light, and they actually work really, really great. They're really good. They're not see-through at all. They block out all the light, so those are really helpful. So that's gonna help you. Same with the light clock. Instead of having an alarm clock, doing some grounding is gonna be helpful for you. And then obviously taking nutrient supplements and minerals like the magnesium to help your body relax. And then sleeping on your right side, which we'll talk about this a little tomorrow, but sleeping on your right side is actually one of the best ways to sleep. Your liver is also on the right side, but if you lay on your left side, it can sometimes compress your heart. If you have a little bit more weight, it can compress your heart a little bit, so it's actually better to sleep on your right side, and it is really beneficial in that way. And we'll talk about some more of those tips tomorrow. But those are kind of the things we wanted to talk about with you guys, and hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you can set some goals for yourself this week and your family, even getting to bed earlier, getting some good sleep. Maybe you try to darken out your room a little bit so it's easier for you to sleep. Whatever it is that you need to do, try something new, see what works for you. And yeah, have any last words?
Yeah, I just wanted to leave you guys with one thought as we talk about this stuff, cortisol patterns and hormones and stuff like that. If you are having a lot of issues with these and you're following all these tips and you're still having issues, there really is a good idea to get tested. And we have one of our favorite tests. It's called the Dutch test. It's a urine test that you can do right at home. Don't need to go anywhere. It's very affordable. You can do that, and then we actually are able to interpret and read those results for you, give you some ideas about what you can do to help your body and support your body toward healing. So if these tips are awesome, but you're like, okay, I still need a little bit more help, don't be afraid to reach out and maybe order a Dutch test. I think that's a really good starting point too, especially if some of these things aren't seeming to help or maybe not helping enough for you. So just wanted to leave you with that thought too. And other than that, we're always super proud of you guys and hope you guys have an amazing day and an amazing night's sleep tonight.
Yep, sounds good. See you guys.